So Donald Trump says deporting U.S. citizens to El Salvador is A-okay with him, but apparently calling it the Gulf of Mexico is still a bridge too far. This is just another day. When Donald Trump was elected to his second term, a lot of people feared that he would immediately upend this country's values and transform America as we know it. Day one. Well, good news, been more of a slow burn.
President Trump is also floating the idea of sending U.S. citizens to prison in El Salvador. What more do we know?
Yes, can you give us a little more insight into our democratically elected leader floating the idea of deporting U.S. citizens to another country's prison?
We know President Trump has talked about, quote, homegrown criminals, U.S. citizens who are convicted for violent crimes, entertaining, at least asking his attorney general to look into the possibility of deporting them outside of the United States. In a hot mic moment, we heard President Trump tell El Salvador President Bukele that he needs to build 5 more prisons to potentially house these potential citizens. Again, there's not really any legal precedent for this.
No, there is definitely not any legal precedent for this. And also, I don't even think it was a hot mic.
Criminals next. Yeah. I said homegrowns are next. The homegrowns built. You got to build about 5 more places. Yeah, that's fair. All right.
Trump isn't standing next to the president of El Salvador at a urinal and forgot he was all mic'd up. Dude's in the Oval Office about to do a press conference with a dozen reporters standing right in front of him. But if anyone had doubts that this wasn't just some jokey aside not meant to be taken as gospel, today, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt dispelled that notion.
Could you, just going back to El Salvador, could you just explain to us a little bit more about the legal basis on which you may be able to send U.S. citizens to prison there? I know you said President Trump is looking at it, but can you explain to us a little bit more about how that might be possible?
We're looking at it, and when I have more for you to share, I certainly will.
You see, Leavitt didn't respond with, oh, that's obviously not something this administration is considering because it is completely beyond the pale of law and reason. She said, we're looking at it. Which means there are God knows how many sleep-deprived, Trump-loving lawyers at the Department of Justice who are, as we speak, twisting themselves into pretzels to find any rationale, any justification to shred our Constitution. The phrase, we're looking at it, is the seemingly polite piece of syntax being used to slowly shift the Overton window. And that was just one of many instances today. Another example of this administration attempting to brainwash the world into believing their actions are lawful is by creating a straw man argument that they would just love for you to refute.
Incredible law enforcement officers are arresting violent illegal aliens from American communities every day. Here are a few examples from the latest ICE report, which I received this morning. ICE Los Angeles arrested a 54-year-old citizen of Mexico convicted of rape by threat, sodomy with a person under 14 years, and kidnapping in San Jose, California. ICE Houston has arrested a 23-year-old citizen of Mexico convicted of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child in Cook County, Illinois. ICE Houston arrested a 64-year-old citizen of Honduras convicted of murder in Los Angeles County, California. On that note, the Democrat and media outrage over the deportation of Abrego Garcia, an MS-13 El Salvadorian illegal alien criminal who is hiding in Maryland, has been nothing short of despicable. Based on the sensationalism of many of the people in this room, you would think we deported a candidate for Father of the Year. That's because, unfortunately, many in this country care more about this quote-unquote Maryland father, a legal alien MS-13 gang member, than a Maryland mother and an American citizen who was brutally murdered at the hands of a different illegal alien.
Do you hear it? Murdered at the hands of a different illegal alien. A federal judge presiding over Abrego Garcia's case has stated Garcia has no criminal record in the U.S. or El Salvador and has called the gang ties a singular, unsubstantiated allegation. Oh, and by the way, that allegation, repping the wrong headgear.
The government now admits it wrongly deported a Maryland man to El Salvador, and part of the reasoning was because of something he was wearing, a Chicago Bulls hat.
And look, there probably is a hat that I would associate with a band of angry thugs, but it's not the Chicago Bulls. And by the way, the fucking shamelessness with which Caroline Leavitt trashes Garcia, Father of the Year, to my memory, only one of these fathers was found liable of sexual abuse. But Leavitt is connecting two things that are barely related. That's like saying, you know who stands at podiums? Rapists. The White House has set up a scenario where if you have the balls to believe that the federal government should actually follow the law, then you're basically endorsing the idea that a Honduran murdering rapist should host every neighborhood's next block party. Guess what? You can believe that people who commit heinous crimes should be arrested and given the proper due process, and you can also believe deporting people without due process is wrong. Two things can be true at once. It's like how I think the first all-female spaceflight is a historic milestone for women, and it also kind of set women back.
Hear that screaming inside the capsule?
In their defense, I think there was a spider on the inside of the glass. But these are Bush League tactics meant to intimidate citizens who even dare defend our democracy through their knowledge of the law. They are trying to completely shun any idea that they're doing anything out of the ordinary. And you do that by continuing to ban news outlets who refuse to call bodies of water their actual name and instead keep reporters around who ask questions like this.
American citizens, 2 Central American prisons. Is it legal, or do you need to change the law to do it?
Yes, quick follow-up. Chopping off someone's head with a machete, is that legal, or do you need to change the law to do that? But it wasn't just the response to Garcia's illegal deportation that was stunning. It was how they handle any allegations of abuse of power.
The president has long said that it would be an abuse of power for a president to direct prosecutors to investigate him. Last week, President Trump explicitly directed the Justice Department to scrutinize Chris Krebs to see if it can find any evidence of criminal wrongdoing. How is that not an abuse of power to direct the Justice Department to look into an individual, a named individual?
Look, the president signed that executive order. It's a position of the president in this White House that it's well within his authority to do it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have signed it. And he signed it, and that's his policy.
Because the president signed it? Maybe we'd be a tad more discerning about what signatures mean to this president if he wasn't a guy who literally signs anything. Trump has created a world where just asking about the legality of what he's doing is seen as an affront to his power.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You know, you have no credibility. Please go ahead.
Is it that hard? Is it that hard to say thank you? Some of you in the media are such fools. See, if you would just kiss my ass like some other people, maybe your ratings would go up. Trump treats the press in this country like they are pain-in-the-ass customers at a cheesecake factory asking for salad dressing on the side instead of journalists doing their job in inquiring as to why our commander-in-chief is a blatant hypocrite and wannabe dictator. And you could feel Trump's animosity toward the press seeping into today's press conference.
I'm not sure what is so difficult about this for everyone in the media to understand.
Oh, I could maybe help you with that. See, the media, not to mention American citizens and millions of others around the globe, are watching a White House press secretary advocate for an administration that is defying a Supreme Court order, reflexively group together all immigrants with murderers and rapists, proudly parroting the words of a foreign dictator, and, with a level of ease that's just a tad bit troubling, getting on board with the very illegal deportation of American citizens to a foreign country's prison. See, that's why it's hard to understand. We are watching this administration pull the world's slowest magic trick, but instead of a rabbit, they make our freedoms disappear. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on this screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.